1 minute ago, Windsor Castle, the most secure royal residence in the country. A high-level private summit that had been locked in the diary for months, abruptly cancelled. Not by the palace, not by the king, by the Prince of Wales himself. And the reason? One man, standing inside the state apartments. Camilla's private lawyer. This is not a scheduling conflict. This is not a last-minute diary clash. Sources close to the Prince of Wales describe a moment of pure, cold recognition. William walked into the room, scanned the faces present, locked eyes on the one person who should never have been there, and shut the entire summit down within 60 seconds. What you are about to hear is the most explosive royal story of the year so far. A story of secrets, legal shadows, and a future king who has finally decided that enough is enough. Welcome back. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the palace walls are talking louder than ever, and we are the only ones listening. Let's set the scene properly. Windsor Castle. Mid-morning. Grey English skies. A small, tightly controlled gathering of senior aides, private secretaries, and a handful of trusted advisors had been assembled for what insiders were calling the Windsor Summit. On paper, the agenda was straightforward. The future of the monarchy's public role, the ongoing transition of duties, and the delicate question of how the institution presents itself in the years ahead. In reality, it was far more charged. Sources said the meeting was intended to address growing tensions between the Prince of Wales's team and the Queen's private office. Tensions that had been simmering for months. Prince William arrived promptly. No fanfare, no red carpet. Just a future king walking into a room that was supposed to be under his control. And then he saw him. The man in the dark suit. The man who has spent years operating in the quiet corridors of Camilla's legal and personal affairs. A private solicitor whose name rarely appears in the papers, but whose influence is whispered about in the highest circles. A man who, according to multiple sources, has been central to protecting the Queen's private interests, her personal correspondence, and certain financial and legal arrangements that have never been made public. William did not raise his voice. He did not create a scene. He simply turned to his closest aide, spoke 2 words that have since been repeated in hushed tones across the royal household, and walked out. Cancel everything. Within minutes, the summit was dead. Guests were politely but firmly asked to leave. Cars were summoned. The official line that would later emerge was vague, a change in the prince's schedule. But those who were there know the truth. The presence of Camilla's private lawyer inside that room was a final straw. Why does this matter so much? To understand the explosion that just happened at Windsor, you have to go back to the quiet power struggles that have defined the post-Queen Elizabeth era. Back to the careful balancing act between a future king who wants transparency, modernization, and tighter control, and a queen consort whose private world has always been fiercely guarded. Camilla's private legal team has long operated in a different orbit from the official royal household machinery. While the palace has its own solicitors and advisors, Camilla has maintained a separate circle. Trusted, loyal, extremely discreet. Over the years, that circle has handled everything from personal property matters to the more sensitive questions surrounding the late Queen's private papers and certain family arrangements that remain sealed. William, sources say, has grown increasingly uncomfortable with the overlap, or rather, with a lack of clear boundaries. There have been quiet complaints, questions about access, concerns about information flowing in directions that the Prince of Wales does not control. And now, the appearance of that same private lawyer inside a summit that William himself had convened was interpreted as something far more pointed than a simple scheduling error. Was the lawyer invited? Official channels insist he was not on the original guest list. Was he there at Camilla's request? The Queen's office has so far declined to comment. Was this a deliberate message? That is a question now racing through the corridors of power. Insiders describe William's reaction as ice cold. Not angry in the theatrical sense. Not raised voices or slammed doors. Simply a decision made in real time. This meeting cannot continue with that man in the room. The Prince of Wales has spent years learning the hard lessons of palace politics. He has watched the institution nearly tear itself apart. He has seen how private agendas can undermine public duty. And he has made it clear, repeatedly, that the future monarchy will not be run by shadow networks. The cancellation itself was executed with military precision. Aides were instructed to issue no detailed explanation. Attendees were thanked for their time and told the discussions would be rescheduled at a later date. But the damage was done. Word traveled fast. By the time the first black cars left the castle gates, phones were already lighting up across London. What happens next is a real story. Royal watchers know that William does not cancel major internal meetings on a whim. This was a statement, a boundary, a warning. The Prince of Wales is drawing a line around the kind of influence he is prepared to tolerate inside the institution he will one day lead. And Camilla's private legal apparatus has just been placed firmly on the wrong side of that line. Sources close to the Wales household describe a man who has reached a point of quiet determination. The years of careful diplomacy, of managing family tensions with public smiles and private restraint, are giving way to something firmer. William has made it clear to those around him that the monarchy's future depends on clarity, loyalty, and the absence of competing power centers. The sight of Camilla's private lawyer standing inside a meeting that was supposed to shape that future was, in his eyes, a direct challenge to that principle. There is more, much more. Whispers are already circulating about what that lawyer may have been there to discuss. Some claim it related to ongoing questions about access to certain private royal archives. Others suggest it involved financial or legal structures that sit outside the official household. Still others believe the presence was intended as a quiet assertion of Camilla's continuing influence at a moment when William is consolidating his own. Whatever the precise reason, the outcome is the same. The summit is dead. Trust has been damaged. And the relationship between the Prince of Wales and the Queen's private world has entered a new and far more confrontational chapter. Palace officials are already in damage control mode. Statements are being carefully worded. Briefings are being prepared. But the truth is a way of leaking through the cracks, and this time the cracks are widening fast. In the hours since the cancellation, senior figures on both sides have gone silent. No one wants to be the first to speak on the record. Yet off the record, the picture is becoming clearer by the hour. William's team is furious. Camilla's circle is defensive. And the king, caught between his wife and his son, is said to be deeply concerned about the optics of a public fracture. This is not just another royal spat. This is about power, about who controls the narrative, about whether the future of the monarchy will be shaped by the man who will wear the crown or by the private legal and advisory networks that have long operated in its shadow. William has made his move. He cancelled the summit. He drew the line. Now the question is whether Camilla's side will respect that line or push back. The coming days will tell us everything. Stay with us, because the story that began 1 minute ago at Windsor Castle is only just beginning to unfold. And if the past is any guide, the palace never stays quiet for long when power is on the line. The summit is dead. The cars have left. The official statements are already being drafted in careful, empty language. But inside the private apartments of Windsor Castle, the real conversation is only just beginning. In the hours following Prince William's abrupt decision, a different kind of meeting took place. Not the one that had been planned. Not the carefully choreographed discussion about the monarchy's future. This was smaller, sharper, and far more personal. According to multiple sources with direct knowledge of the aftermath, William did not return to London immediately. He remained at Windsor. He requested a private audience with his father, and he made his position unmistakably clear. The presence of Camilla's private lawyer inside that room was not an accident that could be smoothed over with a polite apology. It was, in William's view, a calculated intrusion, a signal that the Queen's private network still believed it could operate freely inside the machinery of the future reign. And the Prince of Wales has decided that era is over. One senior figure who was briefed on the conversation described William's tone as controlled but final. There was no raised voice. There was no theatrical confrontation. There was simply a future king explaining, with the precision of someone who has spent years watching the institution nearly destroy itself, that competing centers of influence will not be tolerated. The lawyer in question is not a household name. That is the point. He has spent years operating in the quiet spaces where public scrutiny rarely reaches. Property matters, private trusts, correspondence, the delicate legal architecture that surrounds a queen consort who arrived at the heart of the monarchy under uniquely complicated circumstances. His loyalty is not to the institution in the abstract. His loyalty is to Camilla, and that, sources say, is exactly what William finds unacceptable. For years, the Prince of Wales has spoken privately about the need for cleaner lines of authority. about the danger of parallel power structures, about the lessons learned from the chaos of the previous generation. He has watched how private agendas, unchecked, can poison the public mission of the crown. He has seen the damage that secrecy and competing loyalties can inflict, and he has made it his business to ensure that the monarchy he inherits will not be run by shadows. The appearance of that particular solicitor inside a summit William himself had convened was interpreted as a direct challenge to that principle. Whether Camilla personally authorized the presence, or whether it was an overreach by her team, is now almost secondary. The effect was the same. Trust was broken in real time, and William responded by shutting the entire process down. The fallout is already spreading. Within the Wales household, the mood is described as steely. Aides who have worked closely with the prince say this was not an impulsive reaction. It was a culmination of months of growing unease, quiet questions about information flows, concerns about access to sensitive materials, a sense that certain private legal channels were still being used to protect interests that no longer align with the direction William intends to take the institution. On the other side, Camilla's circle is said to be stunned and defensive. There is talk of miscommunication, of an invitation that was never properly cleared, of a loyal advisor simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But those explanations are landing poorly with William's team. In their view, the man should never have been anywhere near that room. The king, as ever, finds himself in the most difficult position of all, caught between his wife and his son, between the private world he has shared with Camilla for decades and the public institution his eldest son is preparing to lead. Sources close to the monarch describe a man who is deeply concerned about the optics of an open fracture, yet reluctant to intervene in a way that appears to take sides. For now, he is said to be urging calm. But calm is becoming harder to maintain by the hour. There is another layer to this story that few are willing to discuss on the record. The timing. The Windsor Summit was not a routine diary entry. It was intended as a moment of consolidation. A chance for William to begin shaping the agenda of the years ahead while his father still sits on the throne. To set expectations. To make clear where authority would lie. The intrusion of Camilla's private legal representative into that space was therefore not merely awkward. It was symbolic. It suggested that the old network still believed they retained a seat at the table. William's response suggests he has decided they do not. What happens next will define the tone of the coming years. Will there be a quiet recalibration, with clearer boundaries and fewer private operators inside official meetings? Or will this moment harden into something more permanent, a visible cooling of relations between the Wales court and the Queen's private office? Already, practical consequences are being felt. Certain joint engagements are being reviewed. Access protocols are under quiet discussion. And the question of who is permitted inside the most sensitive royal conversations is being asked with a new edge. Royal historians will recognize the pattern. Every transition of power carries its own tensions. Every new generation seeks to define itself against the one that came before. But rarely has a friction been this personal, or this publicly exposed, so early in a reign. William is not the first future king to clash with the private world surrounding a stepmother. He is, however, the first to do so in an age of relentless scrutiny, where every cancelled meeting and every unexplained absence becomes a story within minutes. The old methods of quiet containment are no longer enough. The palace walls are ears, and those ears now reach far beyond the castle gates. One thing is already certain. The Prince of Wales has drawn a line. He cancelled the summit. He refused to proceed with Camilla's private lawyer in the room. And in doing so, he has sent a message that will echo through every corridor of the royal household. The future of the monarchy will not be negotiated in the shadows. It will be decided in the open, on his terms. Whether the other side accept that reality remains to be seen. The story that began 1 minute ago is far from over. New details are already beginning to surface. Fresh briefings are being prepared, and the next development could land at any moment. If you want to be the first to hear it, make sure you are subscribed and have notifications switched on. Drop your thoughts below. Do you think William was right to shut it down, or has this gone too far? The comments are open. We will be back the second there is more. This is a story the palace never wanted you to hear, and it is only just getting started.